Hello and welcome back. Today's topic is, let's say, a very interesting one in the business world. It is white collar crime in the business community. We like to think those types of things don't happen, but guess what? They do, and it's something that business people need to be aware of and be educated about. So we will be talking about crime and criminal procedure, which are two different things. Criminal procedure is the set of rules that must be followed when walking through the either criminal or civil court process. So, criminal procedure rules that deal with walking through the criminal court or criminal trial process. We will talk about distinguishing features of white-collar crime. We will also touch upon some of the more common types of white-collar crimes, and we will be talking about how you may go about preventing white-collar crime. So, we have a few other things to talk about. Federal laws used in the fight against white-collar crime. State laws that are used in the fight against white-collar crime, and, as always, global dimensions of white-collar crime. We are in a global marketplace, a global business area. So we must be concerned with the world as a whole and not just our country or our state when we're doing business. Okay, so crimes and criminal procedure. Criminal law. Criminal law punishes offenders for causing harm to the public health, safety, or morals of society. Criminal law also can determine the ranges of punishment for prohibited or illegal conduct. Regulatory crimes are created when the legislature decides that the need to protect the public outweighs the traditional requirement of mens rea, or mental state, otherwise translated into intent. Punishments are typically less severe in the regulatory area. Okay, here's the types of crimes we have in the United States today. Highest form of crime in this country is treason. Engaging in war against one's own country or giving aid or comfort to its enemies. Step down, felonies. These are serious crimes that are punishable by either death or imprisonment. Another step down, misdemeanors, crimes of lesser severity than felonies, of course. These are punishable by a fine or imprisonment in a local jail. And then the bottom rung, petty crimes, minor crimes that are punishable. Okay? Running hand in hand with criminal law is criminal procedure. These, again, are the rules that must be followed while walking along the criminal process. Some terms to know. An arrest. That is to seize and hold under the authority of the law. You are not free to walk away from an officer when you are under arrest. Probable cause. This is a reasonable inference from the available facts and circumstances that the suspect committed the crime. For example, if you are pulled over for speeding and there is an odor of marijuana coming from your car, and you are asked to step out of the vehicle and officers find a quantity of marijuana in the car, that is enough of a reasonable inference or probable cause for them to search your vehicle further. No warrant necessary. Okay? Miranda rights. These are legal rights that a suspect must be immediately informed of upon arrest. Okay? If you're just being detained or you're just being questioned, Miranda rights do not apply. But the minute you're under arrest, you better have those rights read to you, or there's already a huge problem with your case. Okay? Here are the Miranda warnings, and we've all watched enough police and lawyer shows to know what these are. Right to remain silent, can refuse to answer questions, anything you say can be used against you in court. You have the right to consult an attorney before speaking to police and have an attorney present during any questioning. Can't afford an attorney, one is appointed to you. You have the right to remain silent until an attorney is present, and then you are asked if you understand your rights. That's basically it. Once you're arrested, the next thing is you are booked and you make your first appearance. Booking is filing of criminal charges against the person arrested. The first appearance is the appearance of the defendant before a magistrate who determines whether there was probable cause for the arrest. Is there enough evidence here for law enforcement to reasonably infer or reasonably believe that this person should be placed under arrest? Bail may be set. That is the amount of money that the defendant must pay to the court upon release from custody as security that he or she will in fact return for trial. Okay? After that, we have indictments, arraignments, and plea bargaining. An information, that's a formal written accusation in a misdemeanor case. An arraignment is a formal appearance of the defendant in court to answer the indictment, the charges levied against him, by entering a plea of guilty or not guilty. You are read the charges against you as they stand, and then you are asked to enter a plea to those charges, either guilty or not guilty. Plea bargaining might start here. This is an agreement between the defense attorney and the prosecutor. The defendant may plead guilty to a certain charge or a lesser charge in exchange for providing information, or I'll plead to a lesser charge but not this more serious one. Saves time and money for the court system. Also reduces the likelihood of more severe punishment. The defendant knows they're dead bang guilty and they're going to go down. They might try and strike a deal. The lesser charges, less time. Saves taxpayers money, helps keep people out of court because the court system in this country is just bursting at the seams. So anything we can do to reduce volume and expense in the court system, we will do. Okay, factors for determining a substantial federal interest and the principles for federal prosecution. Whether or not you're going to federal court or state court. Federal law enforcement priorities that have been established by the Department of Justice. The deterrent effect, the subject's culpability, his willingness to cooperate with authorities, the subject's personal circumstances, what might be the probable sentence, what's the possibility of prosecution in another jurisdiction, Are there any non-criminal alternatives to prosecution? Fining, public service. Okay. In criminal court, the burden of proof, meaning who has to prove the case, rests on the prosecutor. There are some important things to consider here. The burden of proof of production of evidence. Prosecution must present physical evidence and or testimony that proves all elements of the crime. Laws are nothing but a series of little tests, and you must pass those tests in order to be successful. Whether you are a prosecutor that is prosecuting someone for first-degree murder, or you're suing somebody for breach of contract in civil court, doesn't matter. There are little tests that the applicable laws contain. You must pass these little tests in order to be successful. All right? The burden of persuasion. Prosecutor needs to convince the jury in criminal cases beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant committed the crime. Now, where a lot of people get hung up is the phrase beyond a reasonable doubt. That doesn't mean no doubt at all. That doesn't mean 100% certainty. That just means you are as comfortable as you can possibly be. You really, really believe that the defendant is either innocent or guilty. Because, let's face facts, in many, many criminal instances, the only people who know what really happened are the people who were actually there when the crime was committed. Those people typically are either dead or not talking. So the only way you can be 100% sure of what happened is if you were there and witnessed it. Well, that's impossible. Can't happen. So you have to be, in criminal cases, as comfortable as you can be with your decision. It's a pretty high standard of proof. Very little question in your mind. Very, very little question in your mind as to what the outcome should be. There are some defenses available to defendants to get them off on the charges they are facing. There is the defense of entrapment. That means law enforcement officials or people working for law enforcement coerced the defendant into participating in an illegal activity. That's not allowable. The insanity defense. The defendant was not capable of determining what was right or what was wrong at the time the crime was committed. Duress defense. Someone else forced the defendant to commit the crime. You're going to help me rob this bank, or your family's going to end up missing. Oh dear. Okay. Mistake of fact defense. Judge, I didn't do it. I wasn't there. We hear that a lot. Wasn't me. Wasn't me. Okay. The steps in a criminal prosecution by way of review. Start at the bottom and work your way up. A person is arrested for a crime. They are booked, meaning charges are filed against them. Formal charges are filed against them. First appearance. Charges are read to them. They may be indicted. They are then arraigned before a judge where the charges are read to them and they must enter a plea of either guilty or not guilty. Then you go to trial. The loser at the trial level may appeal the decision. Then it would go to the Court of Appeals. Still not happy? Try the Supreme Court, State Supreme Court for state cases or United States Supreme Court for federal. Okay, so there is a segment or branch of criminal law that is known as white-collar crime. This is crime committed in a commercial or business context by a member of the professional or managerial class. Hence the name white-collar. Corporations are liable for the criminal acts committed by their employees. Strict liability offenses, the state of mind or the intent behind the crime, committing the crime, is not required. It's just wrong. Conditions required to hold corporations liable. The person's conduct must be within the scope of their authority as pertaining to their job. The accounting department manager is skimming the books. That's within the scope of their employment. They're responsible for the company's books. Okay? Actions taken must be proven to be of some benefit to the corporation. Okay. Doctoring the books for tax purposes, perhaps. Okay. Arguments supporting the corporate criminal liability. Fines pressurize shareholders to ensure that the corporation behaves themselves from a legal standpoint. You want to get a business or corporation's attention, you hit them where it hurts the most, and that's right in the old checkbook. Okay? If corporations are not held liable, there's no incentive to obey the law. Corporations and businesses are basically concerned with profit, right? Not all businesses and corporations would need laws in place to behave themselves, but many unfortunately do. Investigating a corporation as an entity is easier and convenient. You can go in and talk to everybody at once. Collective decision-making should not provide means of escape from punishment. Well, yeah, I was part of the management group, but I didn't really say anything or do anything. I kept quiet. Yeah, I was at the meetings, but I didn't say anything. Yeah, I suppose I could have said something about I don't think this is right, that I didn't want to go against the group, so I didn't say anything. So I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything wrong. Yeah, you did. You're part of management. You're part of the decision-making process, and you did not speak up. Arguments supporting the corporate criminal liability continued. You have to avoid making scapegoats out of employees. Those responsible for making decisions that are illegal in nature need to be the ones held responsible. not the people being forced to carry them out. It is unfair to single out individuals for common pattern of criminal behavior. That's why you don't pick on a member of the management group when the whole group is responsible, right? It is unfair to allow shareholders to benefit from illegal activities. That's like insider trading information, making business decisions based upon information that is not made available to all shareholders. If an action is taken against the corporation, the criminal act will be linked to the corporation in the public's mind, which allows consumers to make an informed decision as to whether or not they wish to do business or continue to do business with this corporation. Okay. Arguments against corporate criminal liability. Fines imposed or passed on to consumers with no impact on the firms. We have to pay a hefty fine in this lawsuit. We'll just up our prices. Our profit margin will stay the same. Punishing shareholders is misguided. Shareholders typically are not involved in the day-to-day operations of a business and don't really have much of an idea of what goes on in the day-to-day operations of businesses that they hold shares of stock in. No real or lasting damage to corporate image can be achieved. I don't know if that's entirely true, but it's getting closer and closer to being true every day. Corporations that get slammed with a lawsuit or criminal charges, they hire public relations firms whose job it is to clean up after people and corporations, so to speak. Clean up their public relations messes. Get them back in the good graces of the public, shall we say. Imposing liability on corporate executives and lower-level employees. The lack of liability occurs due to delegation of responsibility to lower tiers of management. I didn't know that my assistant manager was going to do those things. I had no idea. Oh, really? Reliance on unwritten orders. Well, that's what my boss told me to do. Well, where's your proof? Well, I don't have any. Lower level and mid-level corporate employees can also be held liable for individual criminal actions. You know good and well what you're doing is illegal as all get out, and you're still going ahead and doing it. Yeah, you could face individual criminal charges. Okay, case 6-1, United States versus Park. The president of a national food chain corporation was charged, along with the corporation itself, with violating the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. Food in the warehouse was exposed to rodents. We'll just let that go. Defendant accepted the responsibility for sanitary conditions, but claimed that he had turned the responsibility for sanitation over to dependable subordinates. The trial court found the defendant guilty, but the Court of Appeals reversed that decision. Intriguing. When you turn an aspect of your business over, I guess you have a reasonable expectation that the work is to be done. Factors that facilitate the commission of white-collar crimes. Why do people do this? They're running the risk of huge fines. They're running the risk of going to jail. So why do they do it? Our society stresses material success, but they don't place equal emphasis on how you achieve that success. Meaning, you make money, you get rich in this country, and how you do it is a distant second in terms of priority. Linkage of corporate rewards of salary and promotion to accomplishing short-term goals. You know you have certain criteria to meet in certain lengths of time if you expect to move quickly up the corporate ladder, or you expect to receive salary increases or bonuses. You're gonna meet those goals, those criteria, no matter what. Groupthink. That is an example of that, is what I was talking about a little bit ago. Well, yeah, I was part of the management group, but I didn't say anything. I didn't want to go against the group. I didn't want to make waves. I didn't want to start trouble. That's groupthink. Succumbing to the will of the majority. It's easy to rationalize illegal behavior. Who's really getting hurt here? You know, really. Let's cook our books a little bit. The federal government, geez, you know, they practically print money. Who's getting hurt here? Yeah. Not an acceptable response, to put it mildly. The dispersion of decision making. Well, that falls under my jurisdiction, but I don't make the day-to-day decisions. I have a direct report that does that for me. It's not my decision. It's my department, but those aren't my decisions. I have subordinates who make those decisions for me. Ew. Retention of status by persons convicted of white-collar crime. Hello, Martha Stewart. How much has Martha Stewart seriously been damaged by the time she's spent in prison for insider trading? She's still got products. She's still got TV show. I mean, she's not hurting. Okay? The lack of an adversarial relationship between the corporation and government regulators. Corporations work very closely with people who work in the government agencies that oversee their businesses and inspect them regularly. And they become good buddies, good friends, and do favors for one another. So maybe my business passes inspection when it really kind of sort of shouldn't have. Okay? Poor personnel policies that leave employees feeling insecure and underpaid. I don't want to get in trouble. I can't lose my job. I've got a wife and kids and a mortgage, and I can't lose my job. I can't. Okay. Sentencing of white-collar criminals. These are based on the 1991 sentencing guidelines that federal judges use. Leniency towards white-collar crimes was a big concern. Confinement, or actual imprisonment, was mandated for almost all white-collar offenses. The criticism was sentences for white-collar crimes are much less than for street crimes. And let's face it, Martha Stewart did not do her time sleeping on a concrete slab with a stainless steel toilet that she had to use while anybody walking by could see her go to the bathroom. No. White-collar criminals typically Don't serve time in places like that. You serve time where it is much nicer and much more comfortable. Some types of white-collar crimes, well, bribery, offering, giving, soliciting, or receiving of money or any object of value for the purpose of influencing the judgment or conduct of a person in a position of trust, especially a government official. Yeah, I own a chain of restaurants, and maybe my kitchens aren't exactly up to what they should be, but you know what? I have this timeshare in Hawaii, and I'm just too busy to go, and, well, you know, it's Christmas. How about I zip you over to my timeshare in Hawaii for the holidays? How's that? Merry Christmas from me to you. Wonder of wonders, my kitchen's passed the health inspection. Go figure that. Violation of federal regulations. Violations of regulations pertaining to economic matters, protection of health, safety, and welfare of employees, consumers, and the general public. Now I have violated federal regulations as well because my kitchens aren't up to standard. Criminal fraud, intentional use of some sort of misrepresentation to gain advantage over another party. Okay. Maybe I misrepresent information to you in order to obtain your business. Not a wise idea. Computer crimes fall under white-collar crimes. Using computers to commit traditional crimes. Less than 1% of these cases are prosecuted. These folks are really hard to find because they're really, really smart. The Counterfeit Access Device and Computer Fraud and Abuse Act of 1984 imposed criminal sanctions penalties. Enables civil action to recover compensation for damages caused by the violation. These credit card hackers end up paying a piper when they do get caught. Here are some crime techniques for the common computer criminal. Piggybacking. Non-authorized person gaining access to a terminal when an authorized person failed to sign off, or an unauthorized person discovering an authorized person's password and signs on using that password. Not good. An imposter terminal, using a home computer with a telephone modem to gain access to a mainframe computer by cracking the password code and then using the computer free of charge. The Trojan horse, have we heard of this? Placing instructions in a computer program that will generate unauthorized functions. It's a virus. It sneaks into your computer and then basically blows it up. Salami slicing. Stealing tiny amounts of money off large numbers of inputs, such as taking a penny off each entry and transferring them into one's personal account. If you take $10,000 off, skim $10,000 off of somebody's account, that's rather noticeable, isn't it? But if you take $1 out of 10,000 accounts, is that really that noticeable? Maybe to some people, but I don't think to the majority it would be. Computer crimes, destroying data with viruses, destroys, damages, rearranges, or replaces computer data. A worm travels from one computer to another but does not attach itself to the operating system of the computer it infects. It infects any other computer that uses files from the infected computer. do. That's why when one computer goes down in an office, pretty much they all go down. Unlawful appropriation of data or services usually committed by employees with access to sensitive data. Entering of fraudulent records or data into a computer system. Financial crimes using a computer. Fraud, embezzlement, and larceny, I can talk, are easier to accomplish using computers because you're harder to track down when you're at home sitting in your jammies on your computer embezzling money. Okay, preventing white-collar crimes. Replace state with federal chartering. Have all businesses need to formulate under the federal government rather than under individual state governments. Federal government has more manpower, resources, etc., and it would be chartering businesses would then be uniform. Appoint general public directors, not a board of directors who has a definite interest economically in a company's outcome. Link fines to the benefits obtained. Whoa. If you scammed $1 million, then that's what your fine is. Ouch. Increase operating budgets of regulatory agencies, so they have more people out there inspecting and regulating. Practical measures. Use a well-defined code of ethics that are signed by employees. Anybody ever had to do that before when they got a job? They go through the company code of ethics, and then you have to sign off that you read, understand, and will abide by those code of ethics. An anonymous hotline. You see that up in employee break rooms everywhere. You see something going on that's not right, here's a phone number, and you are anonymous, and you can report that activity. Employee assistance programs. Dealing with it through other means, through therapy and other measures. RICO. This is everybody's favorite. The Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act. This is a federal statute that prohibits persons employed by or associated with an enterprise from engaging in a pattern of racketeering activity. Mob type stuff. Includes almost all white-collar crimes as well as acts of violence. Allows any person whose business or property is injured by a violation of the statute to recover damages plus attorney fees in civil court. Right? False Claims Act. The private citizen can sue employers on behalf of the government for fraud against the government. This offers protection to persons using the law to sue their employer. Can be political as well. Sarbanes-Oxley. This has been around for, I don't know, 20 years, 25 years. Establishes new rules regarding corporate accounting, government oversight, and financial regulations. It applies to publicly held companies. Influences the behavior of private and nonprofit organizations. It is basically tightening the reins on financial affairs, regulatory affairs, things of that nature. Whistleblower Protection Act. This is big. Offers protection to federal employees who report illegal government activity. Applies to present and past federal executive branch employees as well as applicants for such jobs. But it doesn't cover all federal executive employees. If you're seeing something illegal going on in the workplace, you should be able to report that without having to fear being fired, being harassed, threatened, anything of that nature. Global dimensions of white-collar crime. Improvements in technology have increased the occurrence of white-collar crime. Really? Because it's so much easier to do. Because it's so much easier to remain anonymous. Efforts to combat white-collar crime, creation of an international fraud database in 2001. You get caught, your name goes in a database. And when anything goes wrong, you are an individual that is looked at. Convention on Cybercrime came into effect in the United States in 2007. Cybersecurity, cybercrime is a huge area in this country we live in. So we have covered criminal law and criminal procedure, distinguishing features of white-collar crime, some common white-collar crimes, and how to prevent white-collar crime. We've also talked about some federal laws used in the fight against white-collar crime, state laws used in the fight against white-collar crime, and global dimensions of white-collar crime. So here ends our discussion on white-collar crime. Long story short, be careful, follow the rules, and report wrongdoing that you may witness. Thank you for your time and attention, and we will see you again.